right, here we are. It is a Monday, and you are listening to Plate and Ponder, Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton. But this special episode is just going to be with Chris. Why is that? Because our lives have become quite the opposite of empty nesting. We have 2 kids from college here at the house. It has been quite rambunctious, quite chaotic, quite fascinating, quite interesting, quite livable, but also at times quite unlivable. But we are loving every single minute of it. But what it does do is it takes us away from our empty nesting hobby, mainly because we're not empty nesting. And the whole idea behind Plate and Ponder, Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton, was we had something to fill our time and to do it with people that we love, because we have been getting a lot of love out there. It's actually been quite remarkable, to say the least. But at the same time, we've realized that we have let a lot of people down, and we have gone quite a bit of time. I think we're now on maybe 8 days without a podcast. And I have realized, as has Jen, that when you go that long without a podcast that people start to get used to and love, they will make you known that they need a new one. So I'm going to give a shout out to all those people, because they have absolutely positively inspired me to at least do a solo one while I wait to get my better half available to do one with the 2 of us, because I know everybody actually loves the 2 of us bantering versus just me. But I will tell you that I have lots to banter about, and I'm hoping that it makes for a fun episode. And if it's not that fun, I want you all to let me know. And I will take criticism with a sad trombone, or I will take applause with applause. How about that? And we won't go extra long today because we'll keep it quick and to the point. We'll make it almost like a movie trailer in kind of ways where you're just like craving more. You get just enough to feel like you're invigorated to go to a theater, sit in a dark room and watch something for 90 minutes, or at least that's what it used to be back in the 1980s and 90s, when I loved movies much more than typically I do now. I mean, obviously, I like some of my movies. I've been disappointed with some. But I do have another movie coming out that I'm really excited about, and that's one of the things that has gotten us really busy, because I have literally taken over our home studio where we do Plate and Ponder Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton, which, by the way, I would love everybody. I know we're going to have new listeners because I brought it up on some media hits recently. So welcome to some of you who are new. I will ask you please to download, follow us, review us. Feel free to DM or send any sort of commentary that you want us to take into consideration. And please tell all your friends about it, because if you haven't heard yet, we're in 72 countries and growing. And in fact, we probably would have gotten to maybe 73 or 74 if we hadn't missed a couple key days to put out a podcast. So here we are with an episode that I'm going solo with. Thank you to all the new listeners. Thank you for your patience to all of our repeat listeners. And thank you to all 72 markets out there. Big applause for everyone. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? Well, number one is our kids are home. Dylan's home, Kaylee's home. Dylan's home for just a couple more weeks, and then he heads off to the East Coast for a internship that he's super excited about. Shout out to the Cornell Big Red, my alma mater, because that network, which, as we talked about before, the network that you generate during your college days are not for college days alone. And there is a fantastic family, the Lamb family, that are going to take good care of him in a foreign land as he toils extremely hard, probably 80-hour weeks, probably finds some fun in there too, but it's going to be a fantastic experience for him. Kaylee, we have home the whole summer, which is great. She is working for a cosmetics manufacturer out here, and she is doing some suicide hotline work because she is minoring in therapy, and she's also shadowing a couple people in the real estate business too, because that's something that really intrigues her. So we have her, which is fantastic. I think with one half leaving shortly, we may have a little more time to do some bantering and some plate and pondering, to say the least. Okay, so that is the story with Jen and myself and what is going on in our house. I will say that if you got used to having just two people in your house and then suddenly there's four, it does create a bit of turmoil. It does definitely make you realize that, wow, we had sort of a system here and it's all gone to heck. And you learn to adapt, but you become a little slower because, quite frankly, I'm 55 and I'm a little bit of an old dog. And once I get set into a way, even though it's only been for the past 10 months, I realize, I got set in my way, and I sort of like it that way. But I still did get in a cat nap this weekend. I probably should have been plate and pondering instead. I apologize for that, but let me tell you that drool that I get for 25 minutes of a little cat nap and a couple dreams that just are super vivid, and I can't remember what they were, but I'm sure they involved my family and my friends and a lot of fun. And, anyway, it was just nice. And I did watch a lot of lacrosse this weekend. It was sad not to see the Cornell Big Red in the quarterfinals. Next weekend are the semifinals. Cornell did lose a heartbreaker to Johns Hopkins after our last episode, but I will give a shout out to that fantastic Big Red squad. They had a heck of a year. They have huge potential next year, very young team, and we have lots of friends with kids on that team. So Big Red, watch out for them next year. I think they're going to get another natty, as they call it, another national championship. I would like to see the Princeton Tigers, the lone Ivy League team that's left in the lacrosse semifinals, go all the way and take it home and make it two Ivy League teams with national championships under their belts in the last 2 years. That would be really cool, especially given it's the NIL world and there's all kinds of scholarship money out there for the other teams, et cetera. But I do think it's going to be a really good Memorial Day weekend of lacrosse. And of course, in the D3 side of things, there is Tufts that's in there. They are playing, who are they playing? They are playing RIT, which is an engineering school. It's hard to believe an engineering school would have such a great lacrosse team, but RIT has been known to be a powerhouse in that. So anybody that doesn't want me talking about lacrosse anymore, you'll be happy because I'm not going to talk about lacrosse anymore. So shout out to Lax. Moving on to the next thing. Okay, now I will say I'm a little I just scratching my head about this U.S.-China summit that occurred last week. I have been called on to various television programs to talk about it. In fact, there's one I just taped a little earlier, and it's coming on in the next 30 minutes. Everybody wants to know what I think of the U.S.-China summit and was it successful? And I am going to say a few things. There wasn't a lot resolved. I know both sides of the aisle are looking to either say it was a win or say it was a loss. I get that. I call balls and strikes. I have, I think I've revealed where I've voted recently, but for the most part, I've been very centered, very sort of right or left. It really doesn't matter to me. It's always been whatever's best for America. I do seem to have a political affiliation with one side of the aisle that I never had, mainly because I felt like my party has moved another way. I just can't even figure out. Honestly, I don't even want to be affiliated with a political party, honestly, anymore. I think it's just detrimental to everybody's health and well-being. We should just all be voting for whoever we think is best to carry forward a very difficult country to manage in a very challenging time. But let's get back to U.S.-China. Okay, number one is our President Trump, who loves to thump his chest and say he won no matter what. And he did that again. He is claiming big trade wins. Okay. On the other side, we have Xi Jinping, who is touting this idea of strategic stability. Okay. Neither of those are really great victories for either side. One of the interesting telling signs of this whole summit was the fact that neither side was able to decide with the other side what would be the mutual report and essentially scorecard of how things went. There wasn't an actual official statement made on behalf of both parties. Each side made their own statement to their own audience, whatever that audience is, most likely Xi to China and us to America, and then whoever was listening elsewhere around the world, because people are listening. This is a very big trade dynamic. Technically, they're probably U.S. and China are the only two superpowers on Earth, unless you want to throw Russia in the mix, mainly because they have so many nuclear warheads. But the bottom line is everybody's paying attention because everybody's health and well-being relies on whether one of us is coughing or catches a cold. Because the rest of the world will catch the same thing. So let's talk about why I am feeling very ambiguous about giving any sort of belief or opinion that things actually were resolved or made better from that past week. Number one is Taiwan is ours, essentially was the statement that Xi Jinping made, in lack of a better words. He was, very enthusiastic about, quote, reunifying Taiwan. I think there is a bit of a troubled mixture of belief into why the United States of America should be a staunch ally of Taiwan. I think if you listen to the tech bros, they will make you think that it has to do with the fact that they make computer chips better than anybody on Earth. You got TSMC over there, and the fact that they pump out the majority of the most highly coveted, most modernized microchips for AI technology and every other technological, investment out there or entity, whether it's a car to a television to whatever, they're all made in Taiwan. So once we get that TSMC ability to make our own chips, everything will be fine. And yeah, who cares about Taiwan? But the fact of the matter is Taiwan is a democracy, and it has been a democracy for a very long time. Chiang Kai-shek and the rest of them did take off from mainland China. They did not want to be under communist rule in 1949, and they said enough is enough, and they really wanted to start their own democracy on an island offshore, just roughly 65 miles from mainland China. Not exactly the greatest border distance to be when you have a big superpower that wants to, quote, reunite with you. Taiwan is very ambiguous to us as the United States of America. We handle our definition of Taiwan with something called strategic ambiguity. I think we made it even more ambiguous in terms of where we stand with Taiwan when she asked us directly about it during this summit last week. And I would say if I'm Taiwan, I'm feeling a little fearful about who your friends are, because it doesn't seem like the United States will be there, at least in the way that things were read last week. Now, I will say, too, that it looked like there was almost a bit of a trade put up where, we could have a bit more access to rare earths and various other things that we need that are choke points for China if we sort of put down our guard a little bit on the Taiwan front. There were various other sort of horse trade ideas that seem to be floated around, and we will have to see how this plays out. But right now, I'm going to give the Taiwan situation, in terms of clarity from last week, a sad trombone. The next thing, as you're probably hearing from a lot of the press out there now, once again, and I'll say, is probably the left side press is touting it as a big loss. I think the super hard right press, and in fact, I did a show today that was on the right, and they were trying to get me to say that it was a big win for Trump, and I wouldn't go there, and I gave a bunch of good reasons, and I think they sort of were like, oh, these are actually good reasons. Well, maybe we should stop trumpeting this as a big win. But anyway, the other thing that you probably heard probably more from the left than on the right is this potential Thucydides trap. And a Thucydides trap in the most practical sense is one where, say we're doing naval exercises off the coast of Taiwan. Maybe we have a couple F-35s in the air doing various drills, and perhaps a drone or a manned aircraft from China happens to be doing some sort of tour, a drill tour around Taiwan too, in airspace that apparently both can fly in, and they each clip wings and crash into the sea. Now, depending on how the messaging comes out and what the proof is of how that went down and why everybody was there, could make for a very tense situation and eventually lead into a kinetic conflict. And that is what the Thucydides trap is. Now, along with the Thucydides trap thematic that she put out there blatantly in opening remarks, he also alluded to the fact that the East is rising and the West is fading. The U.S. is a fading superpower and China is the rising superpower. That does not go well for a lot of people here in the United States of America, including me. I will call balls and strikes, and I will say we are not playing our A game right now, and I would say if we continue not to do so, I will put us in the fading superpower category. We really need to get our act together. This is a very challenging world right now. There's a lot of geopolitical challenges, a lot of various resource challenges, technological challenges, so many things out there where, like, if we're not playing our A game and we're not in the zone, like, say, Michael Jordan of nations, we're going to have a problem staying a legit superpower with huge heightened power and hegemony over the world. China, by the way, is no perfect ice cream sundae either, to say the least. They have lots of issues also, but I will say their biggest strength that allows them, I think, a lot of forgiveness in the way they handle challenges and a lot of opportunities in the way they handle challenges is they play a game of chess, whereas we sort of have to play checkers. And the only reason I say that is not necessarily our acumen in playing board games or playing games of strategy. It's more about time, the horizon of time. One thing that China gets to do is they get to play the long game. They get to work on and base their economy, base their policies, base their government system and essentially strategies and initiatives over 25, 50, 100-year cycles. That planning allows a lot of forgiveness in the short term if you want to, say, suddenly move everybody off of gasoline or coal power and flip them on to, renewable energy. They can literally say, hey, you know what? All those villages in that, gully or gorge or around that riverbed, you're going to have to move to higher ground because we're going to build one of the largest dams on earth, and we're going to dam up everything, create hydroelectric electricity and solve some of the North's water problems, whatever it is. Like, they have the ability to work long-term over time, pay for things over time, both as far as sweat equity, as far as political clout, as far as political popularity, and they get to dictate a lot of how it's told to the people what's happening, if it's bad stuff, if it's good stuff, through the Ministry of Propaganda, which is allowed to shape minds in a way that is much harder here. I mean, obviously, we know there's various propaganda that comes from the left and the right and shapes a lot of minds, and I know a lot of you have talked to your friends and family about things that you think everybody would see them as sensible, but they think that you're not sensible and they're the one that's sensible. Well, that has to do with essentially where people are getting their news and information. And, hopefully you have those friends and family that are allowed to have that civil discourse and the discussion, and eventually you get to common ground. Well, we had that here in the U.S. I think it's a little bifurcated and divided and seems to be getting exacerbated every day, but I have faith that we'll fix that. I got faith, right? Is there faith? Can I get some? No, that's crickets. That's not, yeah, okay. Well, how about if I just say, I'm going to applause to future bringing together the United States of America. Okay, so that was the U.S. fading superpower. Now let's talk about the things that were agreed to. $17 billion in ag purchases per year. Not all that much, honestly. Okay, I'll go with that. That seems like a little win. Beef, right? We talk a lot about how the trade for beef is going to open thanks to this summit. Well, that's not exactly the case. There were 400 beef manufacturers in the U.S. that were put on a restricted list in China, so they could not buy the beef. Now those restrictions are lifted. Okay, so what does that mean? Is that a applause or what? Well, we don't know because, okay, maybe they lifted the restrictions, but are they still going to buy the beef from somewhere else, or are they manufacturing it internally? What are they doing? We don't know. There's no it's one thing to say, okay, we'll give you back your ID, but can that fake ID get you into the bar? Well, they haven't decided to let us in the bar. They just gave us back the fake ID. Okay, does that make sense? And I'm using that a little bit because of some episodes that have happened around our empty nesting household recently. Okay, I'm not going to dive into that one. All right, a couple things that give me a big ugh, a big sad trombone ugh, okay? Number one is we did not address rare earths at all, really. I mean, there was a little bit of a horse trade kind of thing in there, but not really. I mean, it was like talked around or whatever it was. But let me tell you something, rare earths is a choke point. We do not have rare earths refining capacity here. We don't have really mining capacity. We do have rare earths. There are plenty of them around. We just haven't really taken advantage of exploiting where those minerals are, where those rare earths are, mainly because it is very dirty. We decided to ship all that dirty manufacturing, mining, and refining off our shores to China, and China gladly took that. And now we have, and I know I brought up this funny little stat, but you know what? We got F-35s that need a lot of maintenance right now, and the average F-35, guess what, has 50 pounds of samarium cobalt magnets in them. That is a rare earth, and we do not make them. Okay? That is a problem. All right, we are Plate and Ponder in here. I hope everybody's okay with it because I am riffing, okay? We are going to go next on the China stuff, and I hope I'm not boring everybody. I really do hope I'm not boring everybody because I really want people to understand what is going on between these two superpowers. It's really important, and I am trying not to come at it with any political objective. I am really trying to give you what the news is supposed to give you, which is the news, not editorialized news, not biased news, just news, okay? Another UG I'm going to go with is AI chips, okay? AI is the new nuclear war race. It's the new nuclear race. It is something that we know we can build and build better and better and faster and amplify and make more of it and power it and store it and all that kind of stuff, okay? But we don't know exactly what it's going to do when it gets to a certain point. Nor do we even know what the certain point is. And then what's even scarier is when it gets to that certain point, it's only exponentially going to get to the next certain point, and then the next one, and then the next one. And they're going to come faster and faster, just as fast as they got to ones that were just a fraction as exceptional as they become over time in a much more rapid way. When you hear the specialists, the top guys, the Modi, to ChatGPT, to Elon Musk, to, whoever, and even NVIDIA talking about the future of AI and why it's going to be great because it's going to solve cancer and all that kind of stuff. When they get asked the hard questions about, well, what bad stuff can happen, they don't really know what that's going to be. And that scares me because the last time I can say that this kind of thing has happened was the great financial crisis. Wall Street created a lot of, I would say, sort of like the version of things that seemed like really good, seemed like they really opened up investment opportunities for a lot of people, seemed that created a lot of liquidity that made loans cheaper to get and made it easier for creditors to give debt to all kinds of people that really didn't deserve that debt. And those were syndicated, synthetic loan obligations or collateralized loan obligations that no one really knew what was in them. They just knew that you could part and parcel all kinds of different loans that were underwritten by the people holding them. And then the people that underwrote them then started to sell them off to other people that were trusting the people that underwrote them, and then were retrusting the underwriters that underwrote those loans by these things called the rating agencies that were paid by the very people that underwrote them. Okay? It makes me a little angry because I think a lot of our problems in the United States of America all stem from those 2008, 2009 days. Why? Because a lot of the people that created all this stuff were richly rewarded after the great financial crisis came and decimated almost everybody. And no one went to jail that was a part of it. So here we are today. And what's interesting is one of the things that kept people from going to jail or even getting fired for creating collateralized debt obligations and all kinds of other synthetic loan instruments was the fact that regulators and no one else that were trying to fix a major problem that we all remember was so big and almost impossible to control. All the people that were trying to fix it had no idea what was in them and how they worked and all that stuff. And the only people that sort of did know were the ones that were working on it. So they couldn't fire them. They couldn't throw them in jail. They had to get them to try to figure out how to unwind them. And they had a real hard time unwinding them themselves because no one really knew what they were putting in these things. Which brings me to AI and brings me to what I'm hearing from these experts talking about how wonderful AI is going to be. And I think there's a lot of similarities to come from that case study in 2008. And I don't know how perfect that case study is, but I will tell you that when everybody thinks they don't know much about something that they know a lot is going to be great for everyone, that's a warning sign. And bringing it back to the U.S.-China summit, neither side wanted to talk about guardrails or any sort of sandbox that we should all be playing in when it comes to dealing with AI technology. Which brings me to the next thing, which is chips, the microchips. Now, there was no agreement on that. There's H200 NVIDIA microchips that are supposed to, microprocessor chips that are supposed to not go to China. There's a big push by the tech bros and everybody up in Silicon Valley to allow that to be sold to China because it will open the market and we're way ahead of them. And who cares if they have advanced microchips? Like, we'll figure it out. We'll always stay ahead, blah, 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 blah. Well, I would say you got to put patriotism ahead of capitalism sometimes. And I would say absolutely not. You do not want H200 chips to go. But there was no conversation about that with the U.S.-China talks last week. And in fact, during the U.S.-China talks last week, Culper Research came out with a bombastic, if that's a word, yes, I think it is, a research report about how H200 microchips are actually getting into mainland China, and NVIDIA is well aware of it. And they are going through a company called Megaspeed, which is apparently a Singaporean company, but it's not really a Singaporean company. It's a backdoor for Alibaba to get H200 chips. Okay, none of that was talked about. So I am going to give that a sad trombone for the chips and a sad trombone for AI. Finally, the other UG I'm going to give is to nuclear capabilities in terms of warfare. We have discovered they have been building up their arsenal quite extensively in recent years. In fact, way more than we ever expected. And they are putting them in very, very difficult places to find satellite imagery of and understand exactly what those bunkers are and what their capabilities are as ICBMs. they have a really good idea of our nuclear capability. I mean, obviously there's a lot of top secret stuff they don't have access to, I'm sure, and I don't have access to it either, but they have a pretty good idea of it. Ours has been relatively in the same place, in different silos and various other bases around the country. I don't know the full extent of it, but they haven't been on the move that much, whereas China, they have been. And there was no conversation about trying to create some sort of nuclear proliferation treaty of some sort, like the kind we had with the Soviet Union back in the day. So that is going to get another big, sad trombone. Okay. And then the final thing before I head out on this empty nesting episode that's a full solo, and hopefully no one has fallen asleep, and all our new listeners are going, why the heck am I listening to this? Because let me tell you, I'm actually having fun doing this, so I hope people are having a little fun listening. I'm going to just talk about case studies in the past, okay? The case study that I'm going to go with in terms of any agreement that we've made with China in recent years would probably go back to Trump 1 and his phase 1 agreement. Now, number one, 50% of the commitments that China made initially were met. That's it, 50%. My kids, if they came home with 50 percentile grades on their finals and on their transcripts, we would have a serious talking to them. That is not acceptable. 1 out of 2. The only place that's acceptable, I think, is probably baseball, and that would be a heck of a career. The second thing is they committed to $200 billion more in investment in the United States. Guess how much that they have invested of that $200 billion? Zero. Z-E-R-O, zero. Okay. Number 3, which really drives me nuts because there's a report of it every day in the paper if you're paying attention, every day. And for some reason, we treat this foreign adversary. And by the way, I am not anti-Chinese. I am anti-Beijing, Xi Jinping, his standing committee, which is smaller than it's ever been. So he has more influence over the 1.4 billion people over there that have no right to vote and no right to, essentially change their system of government. I have a problem with that government, okay? And that government has led their 50-cent bot hacking contingency, which is roughly 2 million PLA members, apparently. 2 million, think about that. They hack us, and then they also do all kinds of more hands-on, practical IP theft that is estimated by the Department of Justice at anywhere from $225 billion to $600 billion worth of theft a year. Okay? Think about that. And that is done with our AI laboratories. It's done in our aviation business. It's done in tech. Google has been a big receiver of that one. There's been all kinds of articles about that. And our cybersecurity has been relatively decimated at times and studied and now used against us in a lot of ways. So 225 to 600 billion a year. Think about that. That's a lot of money. So overall, I am going to give the grade of the U.S.-China summit last week. I'm going to give them a sad trombone. The only thing I'm going to add to that is a quick applause. Because one thing that I can take away from last week that, for lack of a better word, trumps everything, is talking. We had a frozen relationship with the PRC up until 1971 when Kissinger and Nixon decided to head over there. I would actually argue ping pong probably started that diplomacy a bit. I talk about it in my book, but they headed over there to open up relationships. A relation that was frozen over thanks to the Korean Peninsula War and various other reasons. And ever since we've been talking, we've avoided a kinetic conflict. And we want to continue that. Conversations, communications, the ability to at least have some sort of discourse, even when everybody's lying at each other, that does keep everybody from throwing punches or launching missiles. And I think that's something we should all think about just in our day-to-day here in the United States of America. Talking, civil discourse, all that kind of stuff. It's good. It will keep us all together as a nation too, even if we don't all agree. So anyway, that is the final statement I'm going to say on this solo episode. Ooh, that was loud. Of Plate and Ponder Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton. I really want to thank everybody that has made it through 34 minutes and 24 seconds so far of me just ranting about a variety of different things on my solo episode. I really hope my better half comes back on the next one. I'm sure you all do. But until next time, I ask you please to download, follow, review, enjoy. Feel free to give any sort of commentary. Obviously, always press us if we're not doing episodes when you want to listen to one on your jog. And until next time, Jen and I both love you, and we're all wishing for the best, because a peaceful world is one heck of a great world. Until next time.